Hi, and welcome to the last day of the VRAR Global Summit. I hope you are all feeling healthy and also inspired by what we are seeing here at the summit. My name is João Domingues, and I'm the Extended Reality and Digital Twins lead at Accenture Portugal. To summarize my role in a typical week, I would say that roughly 20% is spent on researching and gathering knowledge on technological and market trends in different sectors. Another 20% is knowing and establishing partnerships with companies that focus on specific solutions and skills based on those market trends. But by far, the biggest part is channeled in client interaction and creating digital transformation strategies, value propositions, and projects focusing on solving high-impact business challenges. In short, my role is corporate innovation, and this is what I'm going to share with you today. Before I begin, I would like to thank the VRAR Association for the invitation and the opportunity to share Accen's experience, thoughts, and visions on this topic. During this presentation, please feel free to share your opinions on the chat. I will try to address some of them at the end. In this presentation, I'm going to focus on the challenges of corporate innovation, mainly in Accen's core clients and areas of expertise. We cannot talk about innovation without understanding a little bit of history and how all of the pieces come together. Let's start by what I call the three main engines: communication speed, processing power, and technological affordability. Let's not forget that roughly 15 years ago, we had a boost in these three main engines, and that changed completely the landscape of the economy, of what types of solutions and services are on the market. That opened the door to new skills to be developed, new jobs to be created. Now we are facing another quantum jump in these three main engines, with 5G communication speeds, with processing power with quantum computing, and also with 24/7 world market availability, and the technology is getting cheaper and smaller. It's funny to think that in nearly 15 years, some of the major breakthroughs that we had are now a commodity, like IoT sensorization, big data and data warehouses, cloud solutions and software as a service, and business models. And this is coming in waves. We are now facing a convergence of all types of different technologies that are emerging from those 15 years on those three main engines that I talked about. Robotics, automation, virtual and augmented reality, artificial interactions, wearables, they are getting cheaper, they are getting smaller, and they are getting more accurate. Drones, 3D printing, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, for instance. Of course, there is always a downside with innovation. Like the previous wave caused a lot of jobs to become unnecessary, that were legacy jobs that could easily be replaced with technology and automation. But that wave also opened the door to new companies, products, services, and solutions to be created with a newly refreshed workforce, especially in a global economy. And that is why innovation is important. I really like this statement by Steve Jobs: innovation distinguishes between a leader and a follower. But exactly what is innovation? Innovation happens when we can realistically solve an impactful problem using technology. It doesn't need to be cutting-edge technology, but technology is a major part of innovation. Not all innovation is equal, and I would like to share the 4 types of innovation. Innovation needs to make an impact on the market and also need to be based on technology. So, incremental innovation is exactly like the name states. When you add layer by layer of improvements to your products or services, if you position your product and service in the premium market, then you are sustaining innovation because you are making an impact on the market. On the other hand, if you invent or your R&D department creates a new technology that is not yet proven in the market, then you have radical innovation. And the last one, the more powerful one, is when you add technology and impact on the market, then you have disruption, like Netflix and Airbnb and Uber, for instance. Now let's talk about corporate innovation and the challenges that big companies have to adopt it. The bottom line is that due to the nature of their businesses, these companies lack agility and often the culture to innovate. I'm not talking about Apple or Microsoft or Nvidia. I'm referring to Acxiom's core clients. Because we work on critical services for society, our major clients are governments, healthcare systems, mobility and transportations, utilities, manufacturing industry, and telecommunications. These are all typical organizations that have hard time to innovate. However, they are at the core services that are the pillars of economy, safety, and prosperity of any country. Let's see, for instance, the value chain of a metal manufacturer and see how their product is produced. From mineral to steel coil, that is basically their main product. And it is a commodity, and it feeds other commodity markets like the auto industry and constructions. But this is huge. They have lots of infrastructures and lots of equipment, and they work 24/7. They do not stop. Workforces need to be very efficient. They work in hazard environments. How exactly can these types of clients innovate, stop and spend some time on thinking and strategizing how they can innovate when typically by the dimension and nature of their businesses, they are structured and organized in several departments with their own budget and strategy, although a general strategy is usually in place. There are core vertical areas like operations or production and horizontal ones like sales, marketing, safety, human resources, financial, legal, and let's not forget the IT and cybersecurity. When a client has this complexity, usually beneath it all, there are core systems in place to manage these huge infrastructures, like enterprise resource planning solutions, SAP as an example, customer relationship management solutions like Salesforce, HR solutions that manage all areas from talent acquisition, training, salary processing, and performance evaluation. It now becomes clear why innovation, although important because it enables business growth, market differentiation, and a more sustainable footprint that helps with brand awareness, needs to be systemic to the culture and deliberately in strategy with all stakeholders. That is how innovation becomes a reality. With all these core systems keeping the flow of information in a company, it's pretty easy to assume that the road to innovation points to data-driven insights and machine learning modules. You are not wrong to assume that, but there is a whole other universe of workforce performance support to be addressed. This is where I see immersive technologies having an important role in performance support. The technology itself is pretty impressive, I may add, and I've been working with it for more than 7 years now. The type and quality of data we can extract from users using them, especially if paired with other wearables, is unprecedented, and we are yet at the beginning of this journey. I believe it's unnecessary to go in detail into the differences between virtual reality and augmented reality. But in overall, I see the main benefit of virtual reality as being an unprecedented powerhouse that connects with the user at an emotional level, creating powerful memories. It frees the user from physical world's constraints, and at the rate the technology is going, I see that the quality of the experience will become undistinguishable from the user's eyes from the real world. Augmented reality, on the other hand, is and will become the new standard interfaces that we use to interact with the digital world. At Acxiom, we believe that this technology has the potential, not only by itself, but especially if integrated with the core business knowledge and intelligent engines, to really create an impact on our clients in many relevant areas like sustainability, employee safety, business growth, and culture. Now that I shared my vision about innovation in general, the complexity of core businesses in our society, and the benefits of immersive technologies, we are now at the important part of the presentation, the strategy and the case studies. Let's start by identifying the horizontal opportunities. If we want to solve the overall employee performance, we need to understand the employee journey in that organization, from the attraction step to his career in the company, and even when he retires or leaves. Every touchpoint needs to be mapped out and analyzed with the lenses of efficiency, communication, safety, culture, training soft and technical skills, reskilling and upskilling, sustainability, environmental impact, and wastage. With that in mind, what do we want to solve with immersive technologies and what is its impact? Are we focusing on reducing employee turnover, reducing sick days or burnout, improving teams collaboration and management skills, or dealing with stressful situations? For horizontal opportunities and mass adoption, it is better to use what I call entry-level XR. For instance, virtual tours or paddy papers in augmented reality. Don't forget there is a big probability that most of the stakeholders and users will be using this technology for the first time. Don't overcomplicate and aim for mass adoption. Here are some of Axion's use cases for those horizontal opportunities, like virtual tours, virtual expositions, onboardings, promotions, and landing pages in virtual reality. I'm now going to share a good example of a virtual exploration. The other approach is to solve a specific high-impact business challenge. And for that, it is probably not a good idea to think that immersive technologies will be able to do that without any support or integration. A good example of that is Axion's Intelligent Asset and Performance Management. It is an ecosystem of modules integrated with core systems like SAP. It has a clear value proposition. That value proposition is to prevent critical equipment downtime. This ecosystem is divided in three areas: the intelligence part, the performance part, and the knowledge part. Although we are focusing on critical equipments, there is always the human element, the workforces that work and operate and do maintenance and inspections on those equipments, and they need also tools for they to be more performant and to keep them safe. Today, I'm going to focus on the augmented worker. The augmented worker is an augmented reality-based solution that integrates with SAP, meaning that maintenance and inspections can be done using this solution by field workers. Field workers enter a location, they can point their smartphone to his facilities, and he can check what type of personal protective equipment he needs to have for performing that specific task. He can unlock his work orders. He can see what types of dangers he is exposed to in his facilities, toxicity levels, electrocution levels. For instance, all of these markers are present in augmented reality and mapped in SAP. Also, for inspections, he can point his phone to the equipment and see step by step what he needs to do in order to fulfill his work orders. He can add and get data from SAP. If that particular employee is faced with a situation that he cannot solve, he can ask for remote assistance from an expert. And also self-service training, using the client's infrastructure as a playground where employees can explore and learn about the value chain and how that equipment is related to the adjacent equipment, and all types of information about the equipment, technical information, training materials, and also 3D models of the equipment. I can share some pictures of the augmented worker being used in day-to-day operations in one of our clients in the utilities sector. We are almost at the finish line, and here are some key areas that immersive technologies can add real value with good use cases. Let me just point out the sustainability and health and safety opportunities that for us are very important to always keep in mind. Now, keeping all of this in mind, innovation, technology, ecosystems, integration with core systems, how can Axians help? Because we are very experienced and very knowledgeable about these critical markets and critical services for societies. We are experts in creating digital transformation strategies, creating ecosystems that with integration with core systems. And our approach is always getting the data, putting intelligence, and giving an awesome user experiences for all stakeholders. So before the end of the presentation, I'm going to give you 5 key takeaways for innovation in critical services. The first one is business knowledge. You really need to understand the business, the complexity, the market, and the stakeholders that are involved. The second one is technological trends. You need to be aware of all the technological trends and how they together bring more value than apart. The third one is test the impact. The road to innovation, specifically in business-to-business markets, needs to start small, needs to start with a proof of concept, test it and improve your solution. Create healthy communities, open yourself to partnerships, work with them, and create joint value propositions. And as a final message, I need to point out that you need to embrace the innovation loop. Don't despair, the market is just getting started, and the cycle keeps repeating itself. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation, this journey of innovation. My name is João Domingues, my contact details are here in the screen, and now I'm going to interact with you. So see you soon, enjoy, keep on innovating.
Hi. Do you see the presentation? Do you feel these types of pains on the journey to innovation, especially in critical clients with a lot of infrastructure and dimension? You can type in the chat. I can spend 10 minutes here, 10, 15 minutes to interact and try to together figure out how to position especially these disruptive technologies like XR solutions, AI. We have experience in doing that and with clients that have lots of decision bottlenecks. Can you share some examples of your tries on position these type of solutions in the market? So there is no interaction in the chat. That's a shame. But what can I add that I didn't focus on the presentation? It is not easy, especially at this level, because of budgeting constraints. Axians is at its core consulting company, so we do not have specific budgets for R&D and having our experts at the lab and trying to figure this out. Our business model and the way that we approach the model, the market, is always with our clients, figuring out how can we, as a trusted advisor, can create these visions, can create these strategies on seeing exactly where is a pain point in their value chain, in this complex network of interactions, not only in human interactions, but data. and create this vision and then implementing it. So Ingrid, okay. My main problem is that there's a lack of awareness when it comes to VR. People don't seem to know what their company can do with it. At the end of the conversation, we are not interested. There's no chance to follow up. Where can I demonstrate VR tools for them? How can one deal with that? Okay. VR, it is, I'm assuming that probably you are talking with HR departments that have a strategy in training. Okay, I'm going to get to that with the GDPR, but I'm assuming that you are trying to position value in virtual reality with a specific stakeholder that usually is the HR department and specifically the training head of. I would advise that probably it is not the technology that is handicapping the conversation. It is the knowledgeable about the core business. It is the knowledge about how they operate, exactly what is the agenda of the human resources and how that agenda is mixed with operations and the head of a specific productive area. Knowing that and knowing not only the strategy but the budget that they have, because let's not forget that human resources have a limited budget for training, and they need to address year to year all sorts of training, more compliance training like safety and GDPR, for instance, and data protection, cybersecurity. But they also have budget for core requests from operations. Let's say, for instance, we had a client of ours that they have a problem, a huge problem about in injuries with crushed hands of their employees. It was in industry. Lots of employees work with heavy machinery, and they invest a lot in training, but the approach that they were having was not enough because it was standard training, in classroom training, e-learning training, awareness videos. They invest a lot in all type of approaches so that their employees didn't put their hands and get their hands crushed, and then obviously they need physical therapy and sick days. So our approach was, because we understand the problem, and the problem was not the crushed hands, it was how can we approach this awareness at the human level, and how can their employees experience what it is to have their hands crushed. So it was a no-brainer then that virtual reality could be an awesome approach for that situation. And it was a success. Why? Because we put virtual reality goggles in their employees. We didn't need the remotes. It was all hand tracking. And they were asked to perform an operation in an equipment, a big equipment that they need to do some maintenance. And in the first cases, they were doing it, it's like a game, of course, but when they put their hands and they almost feel the heavy machinery crushing their hands, all of them got scared. We were also monitoring with heart rate monitor their stress levels, and there was always a spike. And with this type of data, in this proof of concept, we could prove that virtual reality, not the technology, but this approach, it was a more powerful approach for their employees to change their behaviors and work more safe. Why is that? Because virtual reality tackles the human experience of learning, trial by error, without the consequences. So that's a use case that I can share and an experience that I can share, that it is not pushing the technology, it is really understanding that in some cases virtual reality is great and that there is no other approach that can solve that problem. But in other solutions, probably what they want is a video, for instance. But we need to understand the agenda, the budget, and are they only trying I'm assuming the human resources department, are they only trying to fulfill a checklist of training, or is this a real pain? And probably you are not talking with the right stakeholder. You should be talking with the head of operations. He's the one that is feeling, in our case, he's the one that is feeling the pain. That's what we did. We didn't go to HR. We went to operations, and then operations talk with HR, and now we have a project, and we have been successfully in decreasing injuries. It is part of the onboarding process of that client. So but in other cases, augmented reality is awesome because it doesn't have yet for virtual reality. It doesn't have the constraints, the equipment constraints that virtual reality has. So for large corporations, it is easier to say, you have your mobile phone, so our solution is ready to go. Let's just integrate, and in 2 weeks, you can be experiencing augmented reality to integrate with your data, for instance. When we are trying to position, let's say, a mixed reality headset like HoloLens and similars, now we have the same problem with virtual reality. It is equipment added. There is a capex budget that companies have, so they are not very comfortable in going all in with buying equipment with something that is not yet proven to be for their business a success. So start small and really understand what type of technology is the best to solve the core problem that the company is having. I don't know if it was useful what I shared. Pedro, hi Pedro, how are you? Okay, thank you. Important GDPR implementations of virtual reality. So my experience is working in business to business. So I'm going to share our GDPR constraints in business to business. If you are talking about general public, I'm not indicated to talk about it. But in business to business, usually there is in the contract that employees have with their business, the contract already has some type of how to say this, acknowledgement to share some data. Okay, this is the first part. So we have to be careful about it. What type of data do we own? What type of data do we do not own? And what type of data do we own for a small interaction, and then the data is lost? We do not keep the data. So it's important to have like a matrix of for your solution to work, what is the data that I really need for it to work. Some of that is already solved by this contract with an employee and a company. If you want to have training, if you want to have training, probably we will need to videotape you. We will need to ask you feedback. So in training, I'm talking about training. In training, some of the aspects of GDPR are taken care of. But when it comes to your solution, you really need to understand if you are taking data that you really don't need, and don't take it. If there is some insights that you need to have with the data, can you probably do it without a database and process the data in the device, for instance, or in edge computing? And you do not store the data. You only get treated data with anonymity of your users, for instance. But this is something that you need to, once again, in my experience, dealing with B2B in large clients, this is something that you need to be very aligned with the right department, HR department, or the head of operations, the head of maintenance, for instance. You need to be compliant with the legal of that specific client. If the client is European, it's one. The GDPR has a specific legal framework. it's not framework, but I'm not thinking about the right word. If you're working with the US, it's another thing. If you're working with Brazil, for instance, they do not have any type of concerns about data. So work closely with the human, with the client and the department that you are trying to position a solution like this, and really see the constraints that you have about data. Some clients do not give you access to data. They have their infrastructure. They do not have anything on the cloud. And if you talked about with the IT department only to get like a user for authentication, they do not give you that. So you need to understand what type of infrastructure the client has, and how the infrastructure can inhibit data, and also the legal part. And for that, talk with the legal team and see how your solution can work navigating this inside, of course, not outside this situation. I hope that was also helpful to you. Okay, so if you do not have any other questions, you also have my contact information for further conversations. But I hope you enjoyed. Okay, thank you. I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and the final message here is it is hard. It is not easy. If you are a startup, if you have an idea, if you are big business with a product, it is not easy because the technology is not yet a commodity. When it becomes a commodity, it is easier. But when it becomes a commodity, the market is already filled with awesome solutions. So this is the moment that we have to push forward and understand that clients also are unsure about if this is the right approach to tackle this problem that they have, that they cannot tackle with commodity solutions. Okay, so really work close with them, empathize with them, and try to figure out if this is a way forward, and test, get your conclusions, and wish you all the best in this journey of innovation. Okay, so cheers, and continue to have a wonderful summit. Bye.